Hello everyone, I want to welcome you to the first ever Charles Boehm video podcast. My name is Travis Bloom, I'm the building principal here, and we thought we would kick off this podcasting series with probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen in my time in a middle school, with teachers taking a piece of content and just making it come alive for the kids. But before we get to that, I'm going to allow everyone to go down and introduce themselves, and they're going to share something briefly about themselves as it relates to Charles Boehm.
Hi, I'm Nina Perini. I am 6th grade special education teacher. I co-teach 2 blocks of language arts.
My name is Jen Wodatinsky. I'm a 6th grade language arts teacher. This is my 4th year teaching language arts at Charles Boehm Middle School, and I have the privilege of co-teaching with Miss Perini in one of our language arts blocks.
I'm Roseanne Enright, and I teach 6th grade language arts and social studies, and I have been teaching here since 2006.
Hi, I'm Lisa Restituto, and I'm a 6th grade ELA teacher. I've been teaching at Charles Boehm for 23 years, and I've taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade here.
Hi, I'm Sue Brennan. I teach 6th grade, and I've been here at Boehm for 30 years. Currently, I'm teaching social studies, but I have taught language arts in the past for many, many years as well.
Hi, my name is Mike Rossica. This is my 2nd year at Charles Boehm. I taught for 24 years in elementary school, and I've really enjoyed my move to the middle school.
So as you can hear, we have so much experience sitting around this table, and I'm so excited for them to share with you really about how they took a novel called Peak and just turned it into an incredible learning experience. So here we go. So I would like one person to tell our viewing audience about this novel and what you're doing in class.
Peak is a novel about a 14-year-old boy who loved mountain climbing, climbed with his parents. When his parents split up, they moved to New York, and he actually gets arrested climbing a skyscraper. His dad, who he hasn't seen in a while, comes in and with a plan to save him. They go to Thailand to live, or they're supposed to, but they wind up climbing Mount Everest. And most of the story takes place on the mountain.
So, you know, if you think about reading a book in class, the teachers are really going to share with you a lot of the great activities that they've done with just taking a piece of curriculum and, again, like I said, turning it into a learning experience. So why don't one of you tell us about all the different activities that you've done for this novel?
So there are so many activities that you can implement into this book. And the first thing that we started, all of us did, was we had the students do a lot of background research on Mount Everest and finding just some facts about Everest that the typical person would not know about it. And then we had them present that information to the class with some sort of presentation tool, whether it was Google Slides, Powtoons, a poster. We had the opportunity with our gifted support teacher, Anita Quinn. She came into each of our classrooms and did VR goggles with our students, and they were able to explore the base camp of Mount Everest in different camps at Mount Everest, and that just kind of gave the students a better perspective of how massive the mountain is. Another activity that we had some of the students do is we had them create a commercial advertising one of their an expedition climbing team, and to promote them to come to their expedition team. So that was fun because they had to build some background information on that to present to the students. Another thing that we had the students do is we actually had a guest speaker who came to our school and talked about her experience of getting to base camp. And she was able to talk to all the 6th grade students about her experience, how hard it was and how difficult that was for her to just get to base camp. And actually tomorrow we have Warner Berger coming, who is the oldest man in the world to have climbed the 7 summits. So he's coming tomorrow to talk about his experience of climbing Mount Everest in addition to the other 6 summits. Another activity that Ms. Perini and I did was we found an international school in Nepal, and we are communicating with that school over video, asking them questions about their cultures and their customs and their education and anything that they do outside of their school day. We sent them that video, and we're waiting for them to respond back to us. Another activity that Mrs. Enright did was prayer flags, and that's mentioned in the book throughout about the significance of prayer flags. So if you want to talk about that.
Sure. So before Sherpa take people up the mountain, they like to participate in something called a puja ceremony. And basically each climber puts down their wishes and not just necessarily like their wish to get to the summit, but also wishes for life. And then they hang them. I don't know if you can see them up here. They hang them, and each color has a significance. And the whole idea is that the wind will bring their wishes up to the summit. So in class, we decided to make these flags, but put our wishes on them. And I'd have to say that it was probably the best experience that I've had with my students, because it was so nice to see that they put a lot of people before their own wishes. They put their family first. They put things that they wanted, like they want clean oceans, they want a healthy planet. And it was just beautiful to see that they were putting others before themselves, and they were just being honest. And the thing that was great, I have some chatty students. It's a good chatty, but the day that we did it, it was silent because they were all just completely wrapped up in thinking about what they want out of this life, what will make them happy. We learned about Jordan Romero, who was actually the youngest person to summit Mount Everest. He is an American. He was 13 years old when he did it. And we watched this documentary on him, and he said, you know, you have to find your own Everest. And I think that that is something that my kids really thought about when they were making their prayer flags, finding their own Everest, which, you know, could be a goal or a challenge that you have. What is your goal to be happy in this life? So it was really fantastic.
So part of being a principal, and the best part about my job, I feel like, is getting to say yes to really cool, really crazy, out-of-the-box ideas. And as we get near the end of the year, Mrs. Enright came to me with this ideas for Pennies for Peace. So I'm going to let her explain to you why you see these bottles of pennies sitting around this table.
So Pennies for Peace is a program that is supported through the Central Asia Institute, which was started in 1996 by a man named Greg Mortensen. He started to climb Mount Everest, and he wanted to place his sister, his sister just passed away, her necklace at the summit. But bad weather came in and his team fell apart, and a Sherpa found him and brought him back to his village and nursed him back to health. And it was a very, very poor village, and he thought it was amazing the kindness that this village gave him, resources that they didn't really have to share that they gave to him. And when he was nursed back to health, he said, you know, I'd like to do something for you. So what they ended up doing was building a school, and there aren't any roads. They would have to, they basically carried the school on their backs 18 miles to this village to build this school. And then after that school was built, they started to build other schools in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and in Tajikistan. So they started to build schools there, and then they started this program, Pennies for Peace. At the time, 1 penny could buy 1 pencil. Now, 12 pennies buys a pencil. A student in one of these countries is handed a pencil, and they are given an opportunity for an education and for the opportunity to have a good, successful life. So in the United States, we bring, the whole idea of the program is you bring your pennies in. 1 penny alone can't do much. But when we put them together, we can build a school. We can pay a teacher's salary for an entire year. We can supply these schools with things that they need in order to have successful school years. So that's what we are doing. And on the 11th in our classrooms, we're going to move our desks to the perimeter of our room, and we're going to dump all of our pennies onto the floor, and we're going to fill in the squares, the tiles on the floor, to kind of show the kids a visual representation of what it means to put our pennies together. You know, they may seem useless here in the United States, but when we put them together and send them somewhere else, they could be really put to good use.
So you can just hear the impact that this has had not only on the kids but also on the teachers as well. So I guess the big question is it's the end of the year, kids are excited for summer, the adults are excited for summer. What inspired you guys to take a book and do all of these really cool out of the box activities to make something come alive for the kids?
So I think the one thing you should always do when you're teaching a novel to students is to make sure that they have some background knowledge which will aid in comprehension. So if you read a book about climbing Mount Everest, there are not a lot of kids in Yardley, Pennsylvania that have a lot of knowledge about even what that looks like. I felt like I didn't even really know what that looked like. And at the same time, I happened to be reading a book that's Teach Like a Pirate, and I'm not, super piratey, so what we ended up doing is taking like the best suggestions, which is how can you get kids, how can you teach in a different area? How can you bring them something, try a different food from there? How can you bring in somebody they haven't heard from, like to give more perspective and more background knowledge. So that's where we got a lot of maybe the crazier ideas from, because we had them pretend to be trekking out Mount Everest by holding a rope with their heavy backpacks on, and then we had them climb a rock wall at the end. And the whole time we were trying to really simulate it by telling them an avalanche was coming, or you're in the death zone as we're climbing to the upper part of the gym to do the rock wall. And then we have decided to culminate this by making yak meatballs so that they can try the protein that they eat in Nepal. Should be
The
interesting.
kids were telling me about this today, and I'm like, please share this with me.
Yeah. And it's
Yak meat's expensive.
yak meat is expensive, and I think that's it's engaging. It's the end of the year, and I think it's really working well for us.
Okay, so I'm the social studies teacher here at Boehm, and we sit around in our meetings and different conversations come up, and I started sharing a movie I watched, Free Solo, and I just got interested and I wanted to know how I could connect it throughout the curriculum, into social studies. The way I teach social studies is, a large part of it is we start with geography. How does the land affect your life? And when you're climbing Mount Everest, you must know the land, you must know the terrain. And the funny thing is, actually, when this book first started at our school a couple of years back, I was actually still teaching language arts, and it was really the preview year for the book. We were asked to read it to the kids and decide if we liked it or not, and I think it was an overall resounding yes. And so anyhow, back to social studies, so I teach the geography, and I approached the team and I said, hey, can we take this even a step further? You guys are doing so many great things. What can we do with maps? We start the year with geography. We start every civilization we learn about with geography. We learn about physical, political, and thematic maps, and I could do so much. So I have the kids doing a Google tour right now, and it's kind of a great segue to summer. They'll be finishing the book, but yet I told them, pretend you're leaving the day after school and you're taking a Google tour, you're flying out of Newark Airport and you're going to go to China and you're going to go to Nepal and Tibet. And another thing we also did was connect in the culture, and I have kids bringing up topics like, I've heard that it's a competition between China and Tibet, and the Chinese don't always treat the Tibetans maybe the way they should. So it has sparked geography conversations, it has allowed us to build a Google tour, and it has sparked great conversations about culture. And again, that is one thing I really want to teach the kids, that social studies is not just a list of facts and dates. It's all about the people and their beliefs and their cultures and how that reaches out into their everyday lives. So I hope they can, take it one step further this summer, and then when we come back at this next year, we can all work together and do even more with it next year.
So I hope you have enjoyed kind of our quick synopsis on a really cool learning opportunity that our kids are experiencing at the end of the year here. I want to thank you for joining in and listening to our first video podcast. I want to thank the teachers for creating an awesome learning experience for our kids. I know the kids have enjoyed it. It's been fun stopping into the classrooms, seeing the VR headsets, the yak tasting I'm looking forward to, the prayer flags that are up. We are going to have Miss Quinn, who couldn't be here today with us. We're going to have her on a future episode where we get to give you some inside looks into our VR goggles and our Google expedition trips. Again, thank you guys so much for joining us, and I hope you tune in next time. Take care, everyone. Have a great summer.